This is Carolina Business Review. Major support provided by Colonial Life, providing benefits to employees to help them protect their families, their finances, and their futures. High Point University, the premier life skills university focused on preparing students for the world as it is going to be. Sunoco, a global manufacturer of consumer and industrial packaging products and services with more than 300 operations in 35 countries.
It is the summer of a former president's conviction. It is the summer of a hyper-partisan presidential politic. It is the summer of a possible recession. It is the summer of continued hybrid work from home. But of course, it is definitely the summer of beach vacations and travel. Hello again and welcome to the most widely watched and longest running program on Carolina business policy and public affairs, seen across the Carolinas every week for more than 30 years. There is a disparate feeling between the lazy, crazy fun days of summer vacation season and concerns like tougher personal budget choices and some pretty intense social debate. If the early indication and data is correct, then once again, the Carolinas are on track for record tourism, travel, and an economic impact that's big in the Carolinas. In a moment, we will attempt to drill into those statistics and the implications of it with the two tourism chiefs from North and South Carolina, Tuttell and Duane Parrish. Stay with us.
Major funding also by Truliant Federal Credit Union, proudly serving the Carolinas since 1952 by focusing on what truly matters, our members' financial success. Welcome to Brighter Banking. Blue Cross Blue Shield of South Carolina, an independent licensee of the Blue Cross and Blue Shield Association. And Martin Marietta, a leading provider of natural resource-based building materials, providing the foundation on which our communities improve and grow. On this edition of Carolina Business Review, Tuttell from Visit NC and Duane Parrish from the South Carolina Department of Parks, Recreation, and Tourism.
Welcome to our program. At the very top of the program, we do want to make a note, and it's important to know, over 30 years or so, we have been very fortunate to have corporate partners that make this program possible, and we've just welcomed another distinguished brand. They are Truliant Federal Credit Union from Winston-Salem in North Carolina. Todd Hall, CEO, and the gang are unbelievable in communities that they operate in, and we're just honored and proud that they have partnered with us, and hopefully for a long time. So thank you to them. And I'd like to thank you both for joining us. You know, privately, and this may make you smile or not, but behind the scenes, everybody says, "Oh, those guys from tourism are coming again." You know, they get along well, and it's true. I mean, you do get along well. North and South Carolina, it's a bit like you're frenemies, right?
Yeah.
And you talk a lot, and you share a lot, but you also compete. I mean, is that an accurate way to say it?
Very, very accurate. I mean, we compete in respect of like trying to get, say, come to our beaches versus North Carolina beaches. But at the same time, we're still both Carolinas. I like to say we share the same last name. We're still the Carolinas.
Yeah.
And many people, much like the Dakotas, lump that together. So it's not a bad thing. You know, it's the old saying, just want them to talk about us. If they come to one or the other, that's a great thing. And visitors don't care as much about borders as people think they do. They just want to come and have a good time.
Do you think, is there a, and you know, it's easy for us to say this can't be objective, but is there a more unique region in the country that has two states like this that really act more like a region?
I think we're probably closer than most, you know, and the beauty is that we're different, but we offer different packages, different things to do, but we're so close that you don't really know sometimes when you're going back and forth between one or the other. And we see that particularly in the international market. Visitors are going to go to multiple states, so it's not like they choose Duane or me. They'll probably go to both. Mm-hmm. And if they go and have a great experience with Duane, that's great, because then the next year they'll probably come back. And potentially come to North Carolina and vice versa.
So I want to, I don't know you guys know these numbers, but I want to read this off. So economic impact between both North and South Carolina is $65 billion annually, roughly. So if you take the total population in the Carolinas, divide that, that's about $4,000 per person, per state, per year. That's a big number. It's projected, of course. It looks like growth for tourism is going to be big again this year. Is this the, I don't want to start off negatively, but Duane, is this the year that we finally do see a slowing of the unbelievable spending in tourism?
I think you see a slowing in the growth. I think there's still growth, particularly in terms of average rate. Inflation is, while lower, is still in place. You see it in airline rates, you see it in hotel rates, but not to the degree it was in 2022 and 2023. But still on the positive side, just not the rate of growth just slows some.
Yeah, we're still seeing the growth. We're losing a little bit as a country, as a nation, to international travel. Domestic visitors are now more likely to go to Europe. It's time to take that trip to Italy, to take the trip to Europe that they haven't wanted to take the last few years. So that's hurting us, and we're not getting as many of those international visitors to come in. So that's slowing us down a little, but I think we'll still see growth, just not the big numbers that we've seen the last few years.
Just to single something out, does lodging inflation play into that? Because it gets pretty pricey to go to rent a house at any of the Carolina shore beaches.
A little bit, I think a little bit. We're still such a great deal compared to so many other destinations in the U.S. that I don't think it's as big a problem for us.
Yeah.
Yeah, the lodging inflation is still in there, but I think that will cool quite a bit in 2024 as the number of room nights sold has cooled. So will the rates. It's always supply and demand in that regard.
What do you two think the biggest dark horse is for the for tourism going forward? Is there something you're keeping an eye on that you say, well, if the economy turns south, or I don't even know what it would be?
At the beginning of the summer, I think gas prices is always something we look at. They are holding steady. If you start to encroach that $4 mark, it gets people's attention. But I don't know. I don't see that as much of a big issue for us. In our state. Over 80% drive come by way of car, so it plays a big part. But I don't really see too many headwinds. I really don't.
Yeah, recession would be a problem for us because you don't have to take that vacation. You have to pay the rent. You have to do the other things. That could be a problem. But I think, the biggest slow thing that we see is workforce and workforce housing, things like that. That's probably the biggest issue we're contending with. That's going to keep us from growing even more.
Workforce housing for lodging and for restaurant and for hospitality workers?
Yes.
For workers, it's just about everything.
But wait, not to challenge on this, but we've heard that over and over and over, not necessarily from y'all, but from businesses that say, we just announced Scout Motors in Blythewood or in the Midlands, and where are we going to find all these people? But yet still it doesn't cross a red line and doesn't keep it from happening. So are we crossing a red line, or is this just a worry that it will never, it materializes? I don't want to say it that way, but it doesn't keep it from expanding.
I think it's always an issue, but hotels and restaurants have gotten very creative and adapted to that. You check into a hotel today, your room is generally not cleaned on the second day, cutting down labor costs. You see more robots in restaurants now, bringing out more food, so there's only one trip made by the server.
It's a little creepy.
It is a little. It is a little different. But you see automated check-in going straight to your. You see a reduction in some of the workforce. So we're a very resilient industry, and we've learned how to adapt to that. I think that's true in labor, but I think what you're seeing now too in places like Sea Pines and Hilton Head has built workforce housing for its staff. They're actually owned by the resort. That's happening along the coast and the Grand Strand around Myrtle Beach as well, where they're actually housing people, particularly in the summer and the H-2B visas for international people that come over and work, because housing is such a, everything east of Interstate 95 is more populated than it was prior to COVID. And so that has put a pressure on housing for workforce. And so you see some of the actual larger resorts, larger destinations creating their own housing.
Yeah, if you look at our numbers, we set records in everything: taxes, spending, not employment though. We're not employing as many people as we were before 2019 in tourism industry. And I think part of that is the workforce. It's also the fact that businesses have changed their models. They've found a way to get by with fewer people. Some of it's technology, some of it's changing the business model. It's more takeout, restaurants. You look at a Chick-fil-A, the way a Chick-fil-A is designed now is different than the way a Chick-fil-A was designed 3 years ago. So there's been an adjustment, and I think it slows us down. It keeps us from growing at the pace we could.
Yeah, so a couple of one-offs here, and you guys are talking about a whole lot of things, and I'm trying to figure out what to delve into first, but let's talk about some events. Beginning of May, Myrtle Beach had its first major PGA stop. at Duane's Club. I know everyone was very excited. It's a long time coming. It had to be good. I know you were down there. I want you to comment on that. At the same time in Charlotte was another major stop. It was the Wells Fargo, but the whole idea that these competing events going on the same weekend in the Carolinas, did they take away from each other? How did the Myrtle Beach the first year end up?
Well, Myrtle Beach was a fantastic response. It set a record for the number of visitors that came to the tournament. A single day record on Saturday, an overall record for the weekend for a first time event on the tour. Secondly, it's still golf in the Carolinas, and if you're living in other parts of the country, particularly west of the Mississippi, you say, well, this is a great place to go and play golf. And again, golf trips can go to multiple destinations, like Whit was talking about, just like international visitors go to multiple states. And so to them, whether it's Pinehurst, Myrtle Beach, which kind of complement each other on the golf side, quite frankly. You have well-known Pinehurst, you have places, Myrtle Beach is call themselves the golf capital of the world, and you have places along the other coast, like Kiowa, very well known, both nationally and internationally. All in Harbor Town and Hilton Head, all those to say, it's still golf in the Carolinas. At the end of the day, to the man in Topeka, Kansas, there's a little bit of FOMO. I want to go to the Carolinas and play golf.
Yeah.
And so I see it as a positive that we had two tournaments the same weekend.
Yeah, that's not a concern to have two big tournaments?
There's room. There's room in the state. There's plenty of people.
Bring them on. Is that what you say?
Keep it coming.
Yeah. All right. Let's talk about the employment issue just a little bit more. Do you expect that there would be, if there is a recession, is there a plan B? Do you all have a model kind of baked into whatever strategically you're thinking about if there is a slowdown? It's even harder to get employees, and there's a black swan event and something happens in the second half of the year. How do you model through that?
Yeah, we just have to adjust our marketing to the people who will come. So we've seen recessions in the past, and the Carolinas do fairly well. You know, people will drive rather than fly. Well, that's pretty good for us. We're a drive market. You know, people don't want to drive as far. Well, they may not drive all the way down to Florida, but they still want to get warm in the summer, so they're going to come to North Carolina. Now, we'd change who we're marketing to and what the message is that comes to them if that happens. But let's hope we don't have to.
Yeah, Duane?
Yeah, I would say the same. But one of the things that came out of COVID is taking a vacation has been reprioritized. Before COVID, if it was number 9 on your list of things you want to do that year, you know, from starting with paying bills on down, taking a vacation has moved up to 6 or 7 now. It's higher on the list. It has been reprioritized, I think, by majority of the people in the country have said, I'm not going to let that happen to me again, where I get cooped up.
Flat-footed. And you're
cooped up where I can't leave my state or my house or my city for a number of months, and sometimes in some states even a year or so. And so I think that has has helped the tourism industry, A, rebound faster, and B, won't get hit as hard in the next whatever it is, black hole that happens.
Become more of a priority. You know, people saw what it was like to live without tourism, and they didn't like it.
No.
Life is much better when you can go out and do things and see things and have those experiences. And I think people prioritize that now more over things. They want experiences.
That's right.
And that's great for us because we're all about that.
Cabin fever is a powerful thing.
No wonder you two are smiling so much all the time. Actually, the last several years, you know, everything's great. I know many people will think, and the obvious thing is when you're talking about tourism. Tourism is a great first round for somebody to be introduced to a new region, and obviously that's an economic development masterstroke, if you will. And I know it's used all the time, but Whit, let me start with you. What is the relationship between commerce, and when I say commerce, I'm talking about the agency, and I know you both, North Carolina Department of Commerce, South Carolina Department of Commerce. What is the relationship between tourism and commerce, and how does that work? And is it deeper than just getting people to come and rent rooms?
Well, it's most definitely deeper. You know, so commerce is about helping the economic well-being of the state, of our states. That's the idea here, to make a better life for people in the state. Tourism is part of that. You know, we say there is no economic development and tourism. Tourism is economic development. It's not necessarily business development immediately, but it is economic development. The first time people come here, that's their introduction to the state. We're the front porch. We lay it out. We let them see. We've also had this fascinating thing. We've done a study called a halo effect, and it shows that even tourism advertising, when people see it, they feel this is a better place to start a business, this is a better place to live, this is a better place to retire, even though we're not promoting that. But if they see that it's a great place to live or to visit, they understand that it brings all those qualities with it as well.
So you're saying just in the advertisement that business leaders or a person will see that?
They're more likely to say it's a better place to come and start a business, even if they see a tourism ad. If they visit and see a tourism ad, it's even higher percentage of likelihood to move a business here.
Duane?
I couldn't agree with Whit more. I mean, it's live, work, and play. And that applies to tourism, that applies to economic development, it applies about sense of self of our own in-state residents. And I think that's where tourism comes in, the quality of life. And as we always like to say, no one ever moves a business to a place without being a visitor first. And how that experience plays out sometimes can have an impact on that. And so I think, you mentioned Scout Motors. There's a reason they're coming to South Carolina. And I think that's quality of life is a big part of that, and tourism plays a big role in that. And then, as Whit mentioned, we are a part of economic development. We're roughly a $30 billion industry in South Carolina. And so that's a big impact and reduces the burden on local residents by about $1,000 in state and local taxes that are collected from visitors that local people don't have to pay. And so you intertwine all of that together, and people appreciate the tourism. They really do. I mean, I think that's even true in heavy areas of tourism like Myrtle Beach and Charleston.
How much of the wind is at your back? Because somebody also said, Duane, when you were saying, it's been said within circles, it's also been said that nobody ever retires and moves north. So, having that, right. So, I mean, the piling into the Carolinas, not just by retirees, but by people that are trying to escape higher taxes, bad weather, et cetera, bad attitudes.
Sure.
I'm probably going to get some notes on this one. I don't even know where I was going with that. Let me come back to communities, because we're talking statewide, we're talking coast, we're talking tourism, we're talking sports, et cetera, et cetera. But in Charlotte recently, and I know this because I was reading this story, Whit, Charlotte City Council, and there was some chatter that they wanted to redirect some of the hospitality dollars to other things that were supportive of tourism, which could be argued transportation. Sure, I could see that that's not a big stretch. And Lynn Minges, who in North Carolina, was arguing that would be a bad move. I'm not asking you if you agree with it or not, but I am asking you, do you see more and more of those dialogues in communities that want to peel off some of the tourism, some of the lodging, some of those taxes for other challenges or other payments?
We do. I think the tourism industry sees that all the time. It's a lot easier to put the burden on somebody who doesn't vote and who doesn't live there. I think it's fair for tourists to pay their share. And they pay the sales tax, and they also pay an occupancy tax that typically goes to marketing to bring more of those visitors here. So it makes sense, and in North Carolina, typically occupancy taxes are set up to be able to do marketing, but also to be able to do improvements that are tourism related that also benefit the community. So I think there's room for it. It just has to be stuff that makes sense.
Yeah, same thing, Duane. What do you think when you hear these come up?
Well, that's never. Taxes that visitors pay were never intended to pay for local infrastructure that locals would have to do anyway. It is to add to that. And so, as Whit mentioned, a portion of accommodation taxes go toward marketing, but that in turn increases the overall pool, which that other percentage goes toward improving quality of life. And some of our main highways are decorated with flowers and trees, all paid by visitors, but the locals benefit from that too. That makes them proud to be where they are. And that goes back to that quality of life thing I talked about. But as Whit pointed out, it's easy to take taxes away from over here from people who pay it that can't vote for you in terms of local municipalities, counties, and the like. And so it's an easy target sometimes. And it's grown dramatically in the last 20 years because of tourism has grown. Mm-hmm. And so it's an easy target. And so we in the industry have to sort of protect that sometimes because the people who pay it aren't here to sort of make that claim. Now, that doesn't mean they certainly can't pay their fair share. But as I mentioned a moment ago, it's over $2 billion in South Carolina, local, state and local taxes are paid by visitors. And it reduces the burden on local people by $1,000 each. By every resident annually. I like having $1,000 more in my pocket.
Sure. Do these kind of debates come up more than they have, about the same amount, or less?
I think it depends on the economy, really. And if the counties are flush and the municipalities and the states, then it's not a big an issue. If they're struggling for dollars, then you look for where the dollars are, and it's a place that obviously has grown over the past few years. So. If you need funds, it's an easy target.
Under sports tourism, Whit, I'll ask you, because in North Carolina, sports betting is now legal.
You bet.
And to the tune of at least $1.3 billion has been attributed to sports betting in the last 60 days or so. Does this affect tourism?
It definitely has an impact on tourism. Not the way you might think. The real impact on tourism that it has is the way our legislation has been designed, that some of the tax revenue that comes from that sports betting is going into a fund that can help bring sporting events here. Large sporting events, such as maybe a Super Bowl, PGA events, but we're hoping to spread that around the state. So there's that benefit there. There's also the benefit, I think, that it enhances the experience at the professional sports clubs that we have, whether that's a football or hockey. You can go there, and it's really big, I think, for those organizations to be able to offer that to enhance the experience of visitors who come.
Do you think, and this is a political question, and Duane, I'm going to ask you too, but do you think the political temptation of growing pots of that kind of money can stay focused on, much like the education lottery, where they started kind of getting a little bit of drift outside education? Are you confident that General Assemblies and local authorities can keep focused on keeping that money related to sports?
I hope so. So far, I think the key is good legislation. So I think our legislation really breaks down where the money goes, and it's going to a lot of the university sports programs. It's going to high school sports programs. Some of that tax revenue is going to our HBCUs, historically black colleges. So right now, I think we've got it really good. And it's a tricky thing to do, though, because it is it's gambling, and I think some of the money is going to prevention to make sure there's not abuse going on. But I think we're in a good position right now.
Duane, I know you know this, but gambling, of course, is a moral choice by some people, and North Carolina's made it legal. In South Carolina, gambling is a very hot political lightning rod. I know you know that. Do you think South Carolina, watching North Carolina with sports betting, would feel the pressure or start feeling let behind if that they start building up quite the pool of money for different sports venues?
I think states always watch what neighboring states are doing. It has not been passed in South Carolina, but it's being talked about. I mean, it has come around. There have been bills in the legislature of various types in terms of sports betting. It's not I don't think it's in the very near future, but maybe at some point it comes around. The dynamics have changed in state residents. The dynamics have changed in sports tourism. The dynamics have changed in the way you bet nowadays. And so all those things, I think at some point there will be some passage of it in the future.
Early on, we have about 5 minutes left, and early on in the VRBO Airbnb saga, it was wonderful. It was a novelty. It got people cheap rooms. You could do a whole bunch of stuff, and now it seems to be, and this is my term, it's being institutionalized. It's being another, if you will, another Kayak, another Hotwire, another Expedia, and now it's being regulated. So, is Airbnb and VRBO, are they good for tourism, or are they just additional services? How do you come down on some of the controversies around what they've done and where they are now?
I think they're good for tourism. As tourism marketers, our job is to inspire people to come to a destination. And so whether they stay with friends and family, a short-term rental, or a hotel is really their choice. And so we're trying to get them, inspire them to come to the destination. What I have seen, though, is I've seen, particularly as boomers are aging, more millennials joining the travel sector, if you will, I see a more of a shift toward short-term rentals in some regard. And I now see the large hotel companies like Hilton and Marriott, instead of advertising against each other, are really for the first time advertising stay with hotels instead of short-term rentals. So I see a little more of that head-to-head in the marketing world between short-term rentals, in this case VRBO and Airbnb, and the Hilton and Marriott and the larger hotel chains going forward.
So this is a division in the associations, if you will, of different parts of that sector, is what you're saying?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and North Carolina, we've had vacation rentals all along. This is not a new thing for us. You go to the Outer Banks, there are some areas that don't have hotels at all. You're going to stay in a rental home. It's a different way of accessing it, and it's sort of opened it up to people through the technology. What really has changed, people have had rental homes for a long time. What's changed is the technology that allows people to access those homes. That's really what's changed, and I think it's good for the industry. It is a challenge because there are regulatory issues, and you want to make sure people are safe and that they're having a positive experience. And so the law and the regulation has to catch up with that, and I think it is. So I think it's been really good for us, particularly in the pandemic when that's what really people wanted. And I think there are people that are starting to see, hey, maybe this is a different experience. I may not want this when I'm traveling for business, but when I'm traveling on vacation or with the family or with 3 generations of the family. So I think it'll continue to grow, and we'll have to continue to monitor that as technology changes.
We have about 60 seconds left, and I know you can't play favorites, but where do you like to go? Where do you like to go? What do you like to do?
Well, I love
30 seconds. Lift you off the hook.
I love Charleston, one of my favorite cities, one of the most unique places in the United States. And I love up in the mountains. Lake Jocassee, our Devil's Fork State Park, is one of the most beautiful lakes I've seen in the country.
Yeah. What about you?
I'll go anywhere I can eat barbecue. Go to North Carolina barbecue. Come on.
That's such a lame answer for North Carolina, because then you're going to rip off the Band-Aid on that debate.
Yeah, Eastern or Western. Now that's what I'm not going to say.
Okay. Gentlemen, we always appreciate this. The dynamic's fun. It's very informative, and we appreciate your leadership too. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Good to see you.
Appreciate it.
Until next week, I'm Chris William. Happy summer. It's here, so enjoy it. Good night.
Gratefully acknowledging support by Martin Marietta, Blue Cross Blue Shield of South Carolina, Truliant Federal Credit Union, Sunoco, Colonial Life, High Point University, and by viewers like you. Thank you.